An entitled customer tries to get me in trouble with my managers, claiming that I'm the reason why his food tastes terrible, while also claiming that I was completely incompetent in my service. But despite the fact that I literally did everything I could to make this guy happy, it still in his eyes literally was not enough. And at this point, I'm so frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this two-top of a guy and a girl came in tonight, and this was on a pretty slow Sunday evening. All goes well, and the girl jokes around with me, while her date is generally easygoing. Well, the first problem is when the girl's food comes out. The guy says her fries are cold. I tell them, oh, I'm so sorry, that's no good. Let me have them replate your salmon and veggies so that you can still eat while we cook up a fresh batch of fries. Now, this was my first mistake, not realizing he wanted fresh fries on top of the cold ones so that they had 2 orders of fries. I run back to the kitchen and I ask our expo to have them make new fries while we replate the dish. Thankfully, they had fries coming up then, so they fixed everything up and ran it back out, literally 2 minutes tops. I have her check to ensure that they're fresh, and they are. I say thank you and then I go on my way. But then the guy says his rice and quinoa is cold. I say to him, oh, I don't know what's happening with cold food. That's not okay either. Let me make a new batch of that, and I'll also relay the message to the manager and the chefs about the food coming out cold. The guy then suddenly decides to be combative for no reason. He says to me, you know, I'm not coming up with this stuff out of my head, which is like, I didn't understand what that even meant, so I said, no, I understand. I also said that I'm sorry and that I'm gonna get him new rice. I leave his plate for him, and I just go get an extra side of rice and quinoa so he doesn't have to stop eating. I bring it out and it absolutely is fresh. He then says, this is ridiculous at this point, and I don't even want you to do anything about it because we keep going back and forth on the food. My salmon is dry while hers is moist. He is now visibly annoyed, and I was so lost on what else to do other than get him a manager, which by the way, I'd already told one of the 2 managers on shift to check on him, and that is right after he said that the rice was cold. I said to him, I'm so sorry, but he says, no, I just want you to see what I'm seeing. It's dry, right? His tone has been gradually shifting into anger from the first incident with the fries, and I can tell he's not going to be happy with anything I do. I say, unfortunately, sir, I don't know as I didn't make the food, so let me tell the chef and my manager again. He says to me, I didn't say you made the food. You don't have to agree with me. Ugh, never mind, but it's dry and you should be able to see that as a consumer. Now, it honestly looked like a regular salmon to me. I eat our salmon all the time and it's amazing. So I don't really know, but obviously I take his word for it and I tell my manager once again, well, he's not going over to the table, which is really odd. So I think to myself, okay, I'm just gonna tell the second manager and ask him to check on the table, but instead, this guy just walks by. He doesn't speak to the table, but instead just looks at the table to see if he's eating, and then tells me to comp his meal. I asked what the guy told him, and he says nothing. They didn't talk. And right about now, I'm thinking, come on. Neither manager wants to speak to this table at all. The 4th time I go up to this table after they've gotten their meals is right when it really just goes off the rails. I ask how everything is, and the guy immediately starts berating me, saying stuff like, how do you think it's going? I already told you what's happening. Meanwhile, he's still eating his food. He's very combative at this point, and my other tables are turning to glance. So I say to him, okay, I'm sorry, I was just checking. And then he says, oh, you're checking now that we're almost done? What's that going to do? You've done nothing and no one in this restaurant has come to help make this right. I say to him, honestly, sir, I did tell my managers and I asked them to come speak with you. I'm sorry that they haven't and I will go get them again. Now, at this point, he's right. It's ridiculous I've had to ask them 3 times. But he doesn't know that I've asked them 3 times just to try and get a manager to step in and check on him. In his mind, I've done nothing but bring 2 fresh items they said were cold and haven't done anything about the dry salmon that he said he didn't want fixed. Once he heard I had asked for a manager and one hadn't come along, he gets very insistent about needing the corporate phone number and starts getting louder, demanding the names and positions of the managers. He wanted to know if they were general managers or just shift managers, as well as literally their full names. Well, I gave their names that he's demanding, and I say, okay, hold on, and I leave to get a manager again because clearly I can't de-escalate this situation on my own. I tell my managers that he's demanding the corporate number and has asked for their names, and only then does one of them finally intervene. He proceeds to talk to this table for 25 minutes. I'm not even kidding. The table next to them is visibly uncomfortable and kept turning around to look at the guy who's complaining for so long, and then finally makes eye contact with me. They then ask for the check, and then pull me aside to tell me not to worry about miserable people like that. Finally, my manager comes back after speaking with them, and the man and the woman start to leave. They had their food all boxed up to go, despite it being terrible in their eyes, and obviously had their entire meals comped. But then the guy starts pulling cash out and waits at the very front to make sure he tips the kitchen staff and the manager. He then leaves smiling and waving. Now, I see all of this, and I ask my manager if he tipped him and the chefs, to which he says yes. I asked what his issue was with me then, and what did you guys talk about for so long? He says to me, you took the girl's plate to get new fries instead of leaving it and get extra ones. And he said you were in no rush to help and had no urgency. The expo overheard and jumps in to back me up on getting the fresh fries and rice as soon as possible. Now at this point, I had had it. I'm incredibly stressed out as it is, and this table made me feel awful. And now it seemed like my manager, who spoke to the guy, was agreeing that I should have done things differently. So I told both managers, honestly, I did ask both of you guys to check on him several times, and both of you guys waited until he berated me about corporate and wanted your names. You waited until my tables were visibly uncomfortable. I'm actually very upset and I need to go calm down. One manager was silent, while the other one argues with me that I never asked him to talk to the table. I reiterated that I did more than once, and then went to the back to calm down. I finished my shift and I left, but I'm already working on my master's project at 2 in the morning, and I have to teach tomorrow in a few hours because it's so expensive out here having 2 jobs, not to mention being in school. And I'm honestly so sick of these people pushing me over the edge. Yeah, your managers are clearly trying to save face. For them to act like, oh yeah, you didn't ask us to do anything. That seriously is so toxic, it's not even funny. I used to have managers like that at previous jobs, and let me tell you something, nothing is more infuriating than watching people straight up lie to your face and try to gaslight you. You went up to them 3 separate times. You said to them, hey, I need you to be a manager and do something about it. Not just walk by the table and be like, oh, their meals are gonna be free. And it's so ironic that the only time they stepped in to do anything about the situation is right when you said, oh yeah, they're gonna call corporate by the way, have fun. Like that's the mark of someone who should not be a manager in my opinion. And that honestly sucks for someone like you who's just trying to work and get through school as well as their other jobs. Also, when it comes to this entitled customer, I seriously bet they acted like that on purpose just so they could get a free meal out of your service. And by the way, you were serving them. You went above and beyond what you needed to do just to make sure that they had their stuff exactly as they wanted. And what you experienced is something that a lot of people in customer service also experience. The customer will treat you like garbage even though you've done everything you possibly can, and then once they have a manager that they can scream at, they suddenly turn the tables and act like you're the reason that none of this is right. And that's so unfair for you because you did everything right. You did exactly what you needed to do to make sure these people were happy. But even then, it still wasn't enough. So honestly, your managers are straight up jerks for not keeping an eye on you and trying to be better stewards of their employees. Because in my eyes, you did everything right. And for that one manager and this guy to act like you're just incompetent and you didn't do anything correct, in my opinion, is very insulting and completely uncalled for. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled mother refuses to allow my boyfriend to come over for Christmas Day, claiming that he would have to pay $200 a night just to stay with us. And now, as a result, I've decided that I'm not coming over for Christmas, and I honestly could not be more relieved. Here's what happened. So for context, I've been dating this guy for a few months now. I'm a 21-year-old female and he is 24 years old. He doesn't have anyone to celebrate Christmas with and has never celebrated it before. So I thought it'd be fun if he spent it with my family, especially since I have to go back for the holidays. My mom runs an Airbnb thing in our house to make extra money, but in the winter, not many people are looking for a vacation, so there usually aren't any bookings. And because I'm her daughter, she lets me stay here for free. When I brought this up with her, she said that he would have to pay $200 a night to stay with us for Christmas, since he would be taking an extra room. I told her that he could just stay in my room because I don't think it's reasonable to charge him money when I'm the one who suggested that he spend it with us. But she said he couldn't do that because he needs to pay if he wants to be with me. She actually says that this time, she's not going to let someone be with me without paying. So I asked her if he pays please, can we stay in the same room? And she responded by saying no. And she also said that he can't stay for more than 2 days. Now, I thought this was ridiculous. So I told her that we would find an Airbnb somewhere else. But I'm a broke college student, and between the fees for traveling back home, the winter tuition payment, and rent, I can't possibly also afford to stay in an Airbnb, or even try to split it with my boyfriend. But at the same time, I feel like I need to stand my ground, because she has been very disrespectful to every single one of my friends and exes, and I'm honestly sick of it, so I don't want to just give in to her demands. I'm tempted to tell her if she doesn't let him stay with us without charging him, then I'm not coming back home for Christmas, because I'm tired of her not respecting me as an adult and trying to extort my friends and relationships for money. By the way, this is not the first time she's done something like this, but I also don't want my siblings to feel like I'm abandoning them for a relationship. What should I do? Okay, the mom in this situation sounds absolutely obnoxious. Like, seriously, you're gonna act like your house is actually a hotel and be like, okay, you can stay for free, but your boyfriend, oh no, they have to stay for $200 a night. Like, that really is her trying to extort him for money. It's not even funny. And the fact that this has even happened before is crazy to me. Who in their right mind would be okay with this kind of behavior? Now, the original poster actually has an update, and they stated that now every single room is now permanently rented out, including her room. So if she did want to come back home for Christmas, she would have to stay in the same bed as her mom, which really sucks because nobody would ever want to do that. And so now it looks like the original poster is just not going to go home, which is honestly like really fantastic news because that is such a weird setup. Like, this lady couldn't be like, okay, for this 1 week, I'm not going to have any kind of guests coming over the house, and instead I'm going to have my daughter and her boyfriend over. Like, I really don't think that would have been hard, and honestly, it would have solved so many problems. So good for you for not having to go, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would just be relieved that I don't have to put up with any of that garbage. Today, I messed up by screaming at my psychologist over the phone, thinking that they were actually another spam phone call. And now I'm completely humiliated, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So over the last few weeks, I've been getting multiple spam calls from different phone numbers, the type where you pick up the phone and there's just silence on the other end. I've tried my best to block every single one of them so I don't get bothered anymore, and it worked for a while until I started getting calls from unknown numbers. Now, coincidentally, I also started seeing a psychologist around the same time that I started getting the no caller ID calls. I had gone to my first appointment on a Thursday, talked to her a lot, and she told me that she'd give me a call the following week in order to tell me what she discussed with her higher-ups. I left the appointment and simply went about my day. That day, I got 2 calls from numbers I don't know, which genuinely upset me. Angrily, I decided the next time I will pick up my phone and just scream as loud as I can at the person on the other end. And I think you see exactly where this is going. The same day, while on my way to work, I get another call from an unknown number. I was already extremely angry due to the calls from earlier. Traffic was also horrible, and, well, I was on my way to work. I mean, what did you expect? I pick up the phone, wait a few seconds, no one says anything, and then I yell as loudly as I can for several seconds. Just pure guttural screaming. I proudly hang up the phone and continue with my drive. 2 minutes later, I get another call from an unknown number, and I'm planning to do the same thing I did before, because they clearly didn't get the message. I pick up the phone, and this time, someone does say something. The connection sucks, so I only understand the name of the city my psychologist is located in. At first, I thought it was someone calling me regarding one of the apartment renting listings I was interested in, since I was desperately looking for an apartment in the same city at the time. So I froze in panic and I just hung up the phone. I was so embarrassed that I just yelled at my potential landlord that I just didn't want to deal with it, even if it meant that I wouldn't have a roof over my head. I feel tears forming in my eyes, but I kept driving nonetheless. A couple minutes later, my phone rings again. This time, it's an actual phone number that I don't recognize. I didn't know what to think. I wasn't sure whether it was the same person from before or not, so I was debating whether I should pick up the phone given the massive mess up from earlier. I quickly think about an excuse and just decide to try and answer it. I pick up the phone, and then I hear my psychologist saying that she's calling from the clinic I was going to. Mind you, she said she'd call me the following week, so I didn't expect it to be her calling me. Obviously, I'm 1,000 times more embarrassed than I was before. I mean, I just yelled at the woman who was supposed to help me with my mental health, and now she's definitely convinced that I'm actually insane. But hey, at least I didn't blow my chances at getting an apartment. I let out a deep sigh and I say hello. She then starts starts explaining that she already called me twice, but she thinks that the connection was faulty, which is really a nice way to put it. I then respond and say that I'm behind the wheel and that my baby sister, which I don't have by the way, had my phone the whole time and I didn't know what she was doing. She said it's not a big deal, and then she calmly explained my treatment plan. And ever since this incident, I've been so embarrassed to even look at her in the eyes, and all I can think about is how loudly I screamed at this poor woman over the phone. Honestly, this is a very funny story if you think about it in hindsight. First of all, I totally understand where you're coming from. I get spam calls all the time, and I have no idea how these people got my number. It's always people that are just trying to sell me something like insurance or other garbage like that, and it's so annoying and it's so frustrating to deal with. So I completely understand where you're coming from. Trust me on that one. I think the one silver lining you can definitely hold on to here is that your psychologist absolutely has ran into more weird situations than that. Like seriously, do you think you're the only person to scream at them on the phone? I'm willing to bet that this is not the first time that's happened, and it will definitely not be the last time either. And sure, you did lie to her about how that noise came out of your phone, but honestly, even if you do decide to fess up, I really don't think they're gonna care that much, to be completely honest. So overall, I wouldn't be so hard on yourself, because honestly, I would be very frustrated in that scenario as well. Because getting spam phone calls like that over and over again is truly infuriating, and I think your frustration is absolutely understandable. My entitled, angry boss demanded that I stay all night until one of the bay doors at our auto shop is fixed and repaired. So I decided to maliciously comply, and as a result, I got so much overtime pay that I walked away with a massive paycheck. And there was not a single thing my angry boss could do about it. Here's what happened. So for a little bit of backstory, I worked at the time in an oil change place. They had recently moved managers from salaried positions over to hourly positions. And this is because some managers in different cities were just lying and not going to work while getting the same check every payday. And I warned them that if anything, my pay was gonna go way up because I'm here a lot more than 40 hours a week. And they said that they were good with that. Well, one night I get a call at 7 o'clock p.m., which is 2 hours after close, from one of my guys who was in the shop after hours without permission. And I come to find out that he had crashed into the bay door. And as a result, he ended up getting fired. So I came in and investigated. The most relevant fact here was that he bent the door, so there was maybe a 4-inch by 4-inch gap. A house cat could have squeezed through if it really wanted to. I called our door repair guys immediately, and they said their folks were on an emergency after hours call already, and they were about 5 hours away, and that they could be there in the morning. I said that's fine since this wasn't a danger. I mean, the door was in place, not visible from the street. You'd have to be behind our building looking for this kind of thing to find it. Plus, the alarm is still set and motion detectors still work. Anyone that broke in through this metal door with a 4-inch gap would have to need tools and was gonna get in even without the gap. We didn't even keep more than 100 buckets of cash around, and anything expensive to steal was equipment bolted to the floor. So in my mind, we're just gonna deal with this tomorrow, right? Well, obviously no. I called my boss to fill him in, and he said to call the door guys. I told him that I did already and tried to explain their situation. He interrupted me and told me in super rude and loud words just to call them and not bother him again about it. And for reference, this guy is a massive jerk, and he did not like being called after work or having to do any work ever. He then texted me to rudely say that I better well stay there until they arrive and finish the repair. So since I was single, had no plans, and was now paid hourly, I decided this sounded like easy money. I pulled out 2 comfy office chairs to make a bed or a couch, watched YouTube and did assorted internet scrolling, and slept at normal times pretty comfortably until 8 o'clock in the morning. They showed up around 9 o'clock and fixed the problem pretty quickly, and I was already on my regularly scheduled 8 to 5 shift that day, which I finished. So with that in mind, let's do the math. That overnight waiting from 7 o'clock p.m. until 8 o'clock in the morning was 13 hours, and it was all overtime at time and a half. Then my normal shift was about 9 hours, which was all also at time and a half. So in total, I had about 33 hours of pay for doing absolutely my normal shift, along with some sleeping that was barely even an inconvenience. Well, my boss sees it come payday and tries to give me a yelling over email for trying to rip off the company, sending a message to all of the big bosses as well as HR and payroll. Well, I replied to all of them, explained the situation, including the text message screenshot. Well, suddenly, I'm not the one getting yelled at anymore, and I ended up getting every bit of that overtime overtime pay, despite what my boss wanted to say. Yeah, that boss is a complete idiot. Anyone with a brain could see that this is something that could have easily been fixed the next morning. And guess what? It was. This guy literally just slept at work and got paid way more than he should have just to wait for these guys to come in the morning. Like seriously, this is one of those instances where maliciously complying is like the best thing you could do. Because at the end of the day, the original poster got a sweet paycheck, and there was nothing that their entitled, awful boss could do about it. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.